Welcome to the Human Flourishing Project. I'm Alex Epstein. Today's episode is entitled The Wisdom of Effortless. So what do I mean, the wisdom of effortless? Well, Effortless is a new book that I think is really great by the author Greg McKeown. So you might have heard that name. He wrote a book called Essentialism, which I also really like. And that I won't try to summarize it, but that is a book that very much focuses on us focusing on what is essential. And whenever it came out, I think it came out about 7 years ago in 2014. I listened to it pretty close to when it came out, and I found it very valuable. And I really appreciated that Greg read the book himself, which I always enjoy. And that's one reason why when I write books, I read them myself, even though I don't consider myself that great a reader of things on a screen. And he's got a great accent, great voice for it. So he's very good at reading a book. So I enjoyed his reading of Essentialism. And I saw recently, though, he came out with this book, Effortless. And the basic idea of Effortless was it's teaching you how to do what is essential in an effortless way. And this is a subject very near and dear to my heart because I am a huge fan, as listeners of this podcast know, of what I call relaxed productivity. One of my core beliefs is that productive activity can be incredibly meaningful and incredibly enjoyable. And at its best, it is both. But the way it is pursued is so often counter to it being meaningful and enjoyable. It's so easy and commonplace for it to be pursued in a way that is misery inducing. And that leads to all sorts of negative associations around work. But if you've ever done work that you think is meaningful and work that involves other people that you enjoy, and in particular work that involves using your mind in a way that you enjoy, there's really nothing like it. I think it's an irreplaceable value. It's not the only value in life, but I think it is an irreplaceable value. So I myself have become obsessed with what I call relaxed productivity. And so I was very excited that McKeown wrote a book on a, very related topic, what he's calling effortless. So in Effortless, I'm going to mostly focus on just two big takeaways that I've had that I've been applying a lot lately. But the overall structure of the book, he's got three categories. So he has what he calls the effortless state. And that's a state in which you're kind of feeling like you're executing, but in a way where you feel light. And he calls it emotionally unburdened, and you have energy. And it's a state he says most of us can recognize. It often, for me, I associate it with a rejuvenated state. So he talks about how to achieve that and sustain that. Then he talks about effortless action. So that's taking different kinds of productive actions in a way that has a kind of effortless or at ease quality to it. And then he has a section on effortless results, which is about, being in this, not only being in this effortless state and taking these kinds of sort of hyper effective, relaxed actions, but doing so in a way where those actions achieve results, even when you are not acting. So he'll often talk about residual results. I've had a metaphor for this sometimes in my own thinking, which is related, which is I think of, when you're working, sometimes you make like the result or what's left is bricks, and sometimes it's like dust. And I often like doing things where, I did a bunch of work and I created a bunch of value, but there's still value left over. It's not the exact same thing, but it's related. So for example, when if I have a consulting arrangement and it's about a topic that I wanted to write about anyway, and it's clarifying my thinking about it, then at the end of that consulting arrangement, I have this trove of material that I can put to use later. Anyway, that's somewhat of a digression. So he's got effortless state, effortless action, effortless results. And then within that, he's got specific chapters with specific advice and a lot of great examples. He's very good with examples and stories. So I just thought I would share two of the chapters that I found most beneficial. So one was on rest, which is an effortless state, and then one was on pace, which was in effortless action. And I found it a fun exercise actually to go through all the chapters and just write. He has very good summaries throughout the book, at least throughout the audiobook. I assume throughout the written book as well. So once you've read it, I actually listened to it twice in a row. At the end of the book, he summarizes all the 3 chapters. And so I just wrote those out. And then for each one, I started brainstorming, which I found to be a very profitable exercise. But I'll just focus on, again, rest and pace. So with rest, and I won't even cover the whole thing, but the idea within rest that I found most compelling, and I may butcher his exact version, but here's what I took away, is to do an amount of work in a day, or at least in a week, that you can fully recover from. So the contrast is doing a huge amount in a day and feel like, oh, I got so much done today, but I stayed up till 10:30 p.m. and I can't possibly repeat that tomorrow. And the same thing can happen over the course of a week, where it's just, I'm working until 9 p.m. every night, and then I'm totally wiped. And then I need to, like crash, and then I don't get a lot done. And then often I'll get into a reactive mode. And I think we've all experienced things like this. And so part of his idea of rest is that you're doing an amount of work that you can recover from, or I would think of it as, do an amount of work where I can fully rejuvenate from, ideally within the same day. I really like it in the same day, but at least in the same week. And so you can think of your rejuvenation rhythms in a day and in a weekend, or I still do fortnights. So I do 11 days on, 3 days off, but then having quite a bit of rejuvenation. Like I have an hour and a half in the middle of the day, including always every day a nap on the beach. And then I have, some stuff in the evening. So this was something that I was already doing partially, but I found it incredibly helpful to have this ideal of, yes, I'm going to do only today what I can fully rejuvenate from. And I found that very motivating in terms of making sure that I do my rejuvenation, and also very helpful in terms of not just in how much I put in the day, but also having more awareness of when is a good time to stop and rejuvenate. So longtime listeners might know I have this very unusual rejuvenation ritual that happens to work very well for me, which I call the Seinfeld Nap. And I'm a huge fan of Seinfeld. I have all the episodes, not exactly memorized, but fairly close to that. So if I lie down with an episode of Seinfeld, I will almost always, just listening to it, I can fall asleep. And then I will always, almost without fail, wake up at the ending credits, and I always feel rejuvenated. And this works particularly well for me on the beach. So I'll go, and for anyone who cares, I lie on the beach. Like I actually put my skin on the beach. I don't just lie on a towel. So like I'll lie on the beach 22 minutes and bam, it's amazing, particularly if it's sunny out. So when I'm thinking of, say, I'm working on editing my next book, like I'll just have this sensitivity. Yeah, okay, now my energy is lagging a little bit. Okay, time for the Seinfeld nap. And it keeps me much more in that fully energized, or as McKeown would call it, effortless state. So I'm really profiting from just that added idea of, let's do amounts that we can rejuvenate from. And that helps me be on the premise of, let me be, rejuvenated as much of the time as possible. The other idea I want to talk about that is related is in the effortless action section, where he talks about pacing. And again, I think the chapter is called Pace. And this is, again, related. So the story he tells, it's a story of an expedition. I believe it's to the South Pole, which it's from many generations ago. So it was this unprecedented thing without much of modern technology. And he tells the story of this exploration team that had gone through this very difficult mission, and they were in striking distance, and they had good weather conditions, and they could have made the whole trip in a day or something close to a day during the good weather. And they could have just, used all of their energy, their remaining energy, to get there, because let's do it while the weather is good. And instead, they went at the same deliberate pace as they had gone every day. So the basic idea was they had a certain amount that they were committed to doing every day, rain or shine. And they would just do that over and over and over. And I think this is closely related to Jim Collins's idea of the 20-mile march for any Jim Collins fans, which I like Jim Collins a lot, but I mostly know of him from the Tim Ferriss show, where he's been on the show a couple times. So I don't have his concepts totally mastered, but my recollection is the 20-mile march is a lot like this. So it's about having this consistent, productive pace where every day I'm putting in a very meaningful amount. And this is partially how it relates to rejuvenation, but it's an amount I can sustain over and over and over and over. And the temptation is always, there are two temptations. So one is to do less on a given day when conditions are adverse. And that can be any number of situations. I don't feel like I have enough time, or in an expedition, the weather is bad. But then also to just do a huge amount when the conditions are favorable. So let's say I'm feeling motivated, or I have like a pretty open day. So I can say, oh, I'm going to write for and edit for 9 hours today. And there's just a certain power of saying, okay, I'm going to do the same amount every day. Now, that might sound nice, but then as McKeown points out, well, can you really like set an amount that's the same every day? If it's 15 miles in an expedition, well, you're doing other things besides an expedition. So what do you do? And he has this great concept, and it seems obvious, but I hadn't thought about it, which is just you have an upper and lower limit. So you say, I'm never going to do less than X, and I'm never going to do more than Y. So let's say for finishing up editing my book, my current version of that is I'm never going to do less than 90 minutes a day. And then I'm never going to do more than 300 minutes a day. So that's 5 hours, which I know other writers think it's crazy to write or edit for 5 hours, or let alone consider doing more. But I think if I'm going to pay myself a compliment, I think I have internalized a lot of the stuff that Effortless is talking about to the point where I can definitely do that. I think I just rejuvenate well enough to do that. And then also good at what I'll talk about in a minute, which is not an Effortless, but I think is complementary, which is having a big separation between reactive time and proactive time. So I don't know, that was a slight digression. So I've been playing with this upper and lower limit for the past couple of weeks since I listened to Effortless. And what I found is that in particular, the lower limit is very effective for me because 90 minutes, I have things that can come up. I have a couple different projects going on, and I have things that can come up. And so I like thinking of myself as being able to write or edit for 4 hours a day. Like 4 hours for me is okay. I know I can get a lot done in 4 hours. And so what could happen is, oh yeah, something comes up and it's unavoidable. And yeah, I do need to attend to it. And now I'm getting down to 2.5, and like, okay, maybe I might as well do something else, or take care of some administrative thing because I don't even really have that much time. And then I could go a whole day without doing it. It just feels like, oh, if I can't do the 4 hours or at least 3 hours, like once it got below 3 hours, I'd feel like, oh God, this sucks. I'm so annoyed. But if it's 90 minutes, I can always free up 90 minutes. And what I found this past week in particular was maybe 3 out of the 5 days during the regular work week, I could only do 90 minutes, or definitely less than 2 hours. And yet I got a phenomenal amount done then because I was okay with doing the 90 minutes because I had this lower limit. And then when I'm doing it every day, it has this magic of continuity where, yeah, I'm putting in time every day. And after those 90 minutes, guess what? I'm very motivated the next day because I've done really good work and I have a hunger for more. Versus if I take the day off, it's frustrating and I'm detached from it and I get a little scared from it. Like, oh, am I going to really be able to pick this up in the same way? So I just found this so effective to have this pacing, but with this modification that, have an upper limit and a lower limit. I also think the upper limit I resist a little bit, but I do like it because it keeps the time focused, and it makes sure part of it is this relates to it's sort of like the rejuvenation point, and make sure that I don't crowd out other things. It makes sure that it can be sustained. Because if I think, oh yeah, okay, I can go 7 hours today, 8 hours today. Yeah. But then I have these other projects and then they get on the back burner, and then I end up crowding out the time on other days. And maybe I end up on other days doing 90 minutes if I had budgeted my time, if I had actually observed the maximum, where I could do at least 3 hours every day if I was really managing my time properly. So those two ideas were great for me, but so I hope they're useful to you. But I also want to just recommend the book, and I would in particular recommend the audiobook, just because I think it's very, very well done, and he's a very good reader of it. One final idea, an idea of mine that I think integrates very well with the material from Effortless, is the idea that on a past episode I've called separating performance time and feedback time. I'm currently calling it separating proactive and reactive time. I still don't have a term that I'm totally happy with, but I think overall proactive time and reactive time is better. And just to give you a quick refresher on this, very quick, the basic idea is like there are certain activities in my day that are desirable, but they are necessarily reactive. And for me, the reason I use feedback time sometimes, it often involves feedback from the external world. So with email, there's just who knows what could come in. It could be, a TV request, or I could learn about, I have a speaking engagement. There's all sorts of exciting and non-exciting things that could happen. Same thing for me, like Twitter. Oh yeah, my thread blew up, that kind of thing. And I find that those reactive things, so I don't want to do more of them than I need to, but some of them are definitely totally necessary. But I find that by batching them together, and for me, I've really discovered that it works well to do quickly at the beginning of the day, despite what you may hear from other people. So I'm probably one of the few people that does it, but I really do check my email and social media, like all of that in the morning. I check it once a day. And then I do have an assistant who monitors it to see, but I do not go into that thing. Like I do not look at my inbox more than once a day, almost every day. And it is hard to stress how magical this is, because I'll just give you an example. So just take this morning. I'm recording this on a Sunday, but I work fortnight. So I'm in the middle of my, whatever it is, my 7th day of this 11-day period. And so this morning, so what do? I check my email, I look at Twitter, I looked at LinkedIn, I process these things and my email. And, with the email, it's just taking in anything I need to. And then if there's something that I really need to do later, I'll schedule it for later. I'll put it on my calendar. I'm a fan of having everything on the calendar, but I get through all of that. And then after say 7 a.m., I know that nothing for the rest of the day is going to screw with me, because it's just I'm just going to do proactive stuff. So I'm going to edit for 4 hours. And then let's have a call with my sister, and I have a call with somebody else, but they're all things where I'm setting the agenda. And what happens is when you're in that proactive zone, when it's sustained, there are only really 3 things that you can be doing. You can be executing. So you can just be executing on what you planned to execute. You can be planning. So let's say you're not sure about what comes next, and this includes prioritization. You can be planning, or you can be rejuvenating, and that's it. And it's and particularly if you do the reactive time in the morning, then you have this proactive time the rest of the day. And I include social things in proactive time as well. And different things will be proactive and reactive for different people. But I would just suggest, if you haven't tried this, or if you got off of it, I would say get back on it, because you have no idea how capable your mind is when you can have this huge amount of proactive time, and these reactive things are not going to be happening. And then I think of it as, in a very real sense, there are 2 fundamental impediments to effortless productivity, relaxed productivity. And so one is being tired. And here's why I really love what McKeown is saying about rest, and what I would talk about with rejuvenation. It's I take Seinfeld's advice, do not work tired. I love that. And ever since I heard that from him, it really changed my life. And the other thing, though, is even if you have good energy, even if you're not tired, if you're reactive, you cannot function. And it's such a staggering difference in terms of how well you can do a given task, but also your overall altitude in terms of just being on top of things, not being overwhelmed, just a totally different thing. So if you think about, and that it has a lot to do with being unfocused. The reactive stuff takes you out of focus. So if you can just be high energy and proactive, it's just a magical state in terms of how much you can create and how much you will enjoy it. So I would add that when you're thinking about the things in Effortless, think about in particular that separation between proactive and reactive time. And I think your life will become that much more effortless. So thanks to Greg McKeown for writing Effortless. I really enjoyed it. I look forward to he seems to write a book every 7 years like I do. So I look forward to his next one. I highly recommend it. And I will speak to everybody soon. By the way, one quick thing, I don't mean to announce this as so quickly at the end, but I have, at least for the foreseeable future, I'm going to be doing these shows at least every 4 weeks. So I'm committing to at least every 4 weeks. Before it was every 2 weeks, but I want to do a bunch of other things, including I've been doing more of being on other people's shows. So I'm still going to commit to doing it. I love doing it, but it's currently every 4 weeks. Now, if I'm inspired, I'll do it more frequently, but I just want to keep a clear contract with the listeners because I so enjoy having you as listeners. And as always, if you have any questions, comments, love mail, or hate mail, email me at alex@alexepstein.com. Sign up to get updates on the show at humanflourishingproject.com and discuss the show at facebook.com/humanflourishingproject. All right. I will be back in 4 weeks or less. Until then, I'm Alex Epstein. This has been the Human Flourishing Project.